All right, welcome back. After the United States charged Indian national Nikhil Gupta in an alleged plot to kill Gurpatwant Singh Pannun, a Khalistani separatist designated terrorist so far as India is concerned, and India ordered a high-level panel monitored inquiry into the findings. The United States is still backing the terrorists and have now called charges grave. Why is Washington, D.C. going out on a limb to protect Khalistani terrorists? We have discussed this yesterday. Today, what we are going to do is, I have got hold of the entire charge sheet, 15 pages that have been released by the U.S. Attorney of the South District of New York, and we'll discuss it threadbare as to what it really means. Where are the loopholes?
U.S. has responded on terrorist Gurpatwant Pannu's murder plot probed by India. Welcoming the probe by India, U.S. officials said that they take such charges seriously. Further adding that they even raised the issue with Indian government official in the past few weeks.
I can say that this is something we take very seriously. A number of us have raised this directly with the Indian government in past weeks. The government announced today that it was conducting an investigation, and that's good and appropriate, and we look forward to seeing the results.
Strategic partnership with India. At the same time, we take this very seriously. These allegations and this investigation, take it very seriously. And we're glad to see that the Indians are too, by announcing their own efforts to investigate this. And we've been clear that we want to see anybody held, that's responsible for these alleged crimes to be held properly accountable.
While India has made its stand clear,
some inputs pertaining to nexus between organized criminals, gun runners, terrorists, other extremists. We take, of course, such inputs very seriously, and a high-level inquiry committee has been constituted to look into all the relevant aspects of the matter. We cannot share any further information on such security matters. As regards the case against an individual that has been filed in a U.S. court, allegedly linking him to an Indian official, this is a matter of concern. We have said, and let me reiterate, that this is also contrary to government policy.
the question is, why is the US going out of the way for terrorists? Let's debate.
All right, welcome back. With me is the 15-page charge sheet, or the indictment as it is called in the United States courts, which has been filed by the U.S. Attorney of the Southern District of New York in connection with the hire for murder case that they have made in the assassination bid on Gurpatwant Singh Pannun. Joining me to understand this, discuss threadbare, Vikram Singh, former Director General of Police of Uttar Pradesh. He's joining us live from Delhi. We also have Dr. Joseph Chalil, author and publisher of the Universal News Network. He's former chairman of the Indo-American Press Club, and he's joining us live from Florida, United States, and as also very combative and engaging Rich Outzen, retired Colonel, U.S. Army, and former senior advisor of the State Department and senior fellow of the Jamestown Foundation. He's joining us live from Virginia. Rich, you know, I'm going through this chart sheet. You would have seen some of it, you would have heard about it the last few days. You know, either it's a bad plot or it's really bad scripting. I'm just to help you understand why I say so. I'm just going through point by point.
I'm sorry, I lost your audio for just a second. Can you repeat the question?
How it builds the story.
Repeat the question, please?
Yes, I'm giving you the question. I'm giving you the background of the. I'm giving you a narrative that comes out of this indictment that is filed in the US court. Basically, it shows an Indian officer chatting with a criminal identified as Nikhil Gupta or Nick on WhatsApp, on Telegram, on maybe FaceTime, and communicating that we want this guy to be bumped off. Please do that in a certain deadline. They connect for the first time perhaps in the month of May, and within 10 days this man is giving him money, this man is giving him information, And so it seems a little amateurish that this would really happen. I mean, if I was an intelligence officer, I would think this is absolutely unintelligent to be doing.
I think that's a fair assessment. But remember, people say things when they think they are not being listened to that are a little different than the things they would say if they knew someone was listening. So when you're dealing with the United States of America, you're dealing with a country with a pervasive signals intelligence network all around the world. So this is no secret, as we found out, even for our own citizens and for the leaders of allied countries, we have massive amounts of satellites and other sensors that scoop up phone calls and email messages and sort through them. Now, frankly, this is sort of like the movie Casablanca, where the French policeman comes in and says, I'm shocked to see that gambling is taking place. Because, of course, everybody knows that the great nation states spy on each other, even allies. But when you sift through all the material, the one thing that would have triggered the attention of counterintelligence and law enforcement officials in the U.S. is the fact that it's an American citizen involved as the target of an assassination plot. So that's two things. First, I think, yes, it was amateurish. And I think that ordinarily, the degree of shock you can tell from the U.S. officials is not that great, but there has to be a red line somewhere. The idea that if you're going to spy on the United States, and we spy on our friends might spy on us as well. But to go so far as to try to arrange a murder of an American citizen, even though he's considered a terrorist in India, that crosses a line that is not acceptable. So I think the U.S. is right to deal with it in this manner.
Rich, I wonder if you are giving the right analogy with Casablanca, because that was the story about unrequited love, and India and the United States better guard themselves against this story leading there, because it's a very enduring partnership building up, and you don't want this to go the Casablanca way. But having said that, Joseph, the point Rich is making is that while it sounds amateurish, the kind of muscle United States has in terms of its surveillance mechanisms around the world, you better believe so. You better believe this. Do we do that?
It is really funny to see such a charge being brought up without, again, blaming an individual for a foolish act, amateurish act. But a nation like India to do it as a state-sponsored assassination attempt is a stretch. It may be a far stretch with no proof to prove. I also suspect, again, from what I heard from my friends and colleagues in the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, you should suspect the funding source of the Khalistani team members in Canada. As you know, many of the Punjabi or the Khalistani members in Canada are involved in trucking business, and many of the Canadian automotive assembly plants receive spare parts from south of U.S. border in Mexico to Canada every day using these trucks. The rumors I'm hearing is that there's more than parts come in those trucks, and this is what's funding. So the involvement of DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, in this plot, the history of this Mr. Nikhil Gupta in the drug charges in the past, it all adds up to be. It could very well be a if this Pannu is an informant to the DEA against the drug cartels in Mexico, it could very well be a story or a script done by them against them. So that would make more sense than the government of India actually sponsoring an assassination in an amateurish way like this.
Okay, let me get our senior officer from the police forces, former officer, of course, Mr. Vikram Singh in this. Mr. Singh, I'm just giving you some dates for you to understand, and then with your experience and understanding, please tell us how plausible, practical, possible this is. Now, it says that on May 29th, Nikhil Gupta got in touch with someone identified as CS, which is confidential source, and connects with this person on whether he can find somebody to bump off Pannu in New York. On June 1, which is a couple of days later, Nikhil Gupta sends pictures, identification, coordinates of Pannu to confidential source. The confidential source says that, okay, fine, I have managed somebody. The person can, do it for $100,000. That is $100,000. And then on June 2, which is just a day after Nikhil Gupta has communicated all these coordinates to confidential source, which happens to be someone connected with the department, the Drugs Enforcement Agency of the US and FBI, etc. The Indian officer identified as CC1 seeks updates. Within 2 days, seeks updates from NG. How is the murder plot progressing? On June 3, another next day, Nikhil Gupta gets back to the CS, which is confidential source, and messages 3-4 times, finish the job, finish the job. And then you have, after a few more days, TC1, the Indian officer, telling Nikhil Gupta, don't do this when high-profile visit is happening, which was of the Prime Minister, the state visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the United States towards the 3rd week of June. And then on 18th June, Nijjar is murdered in Canada. An open source video of Nijjar's body lying in a pool of blood is sent by the Indian officer to Nikhil Gupta, saying now we need to hurry because this information is out. How practical and believable this sounds that an officer tasked with such an important task, let's assume the government of India is very clear, this is not government of India policy, but let's assume that this was happening. Would the government or anywhere in the machinery, in the services, in the agencies, would anyone as amateurish as that be given the responsibility of this kind of task?
Good evening, gentlemen. You have put a straight question and that warrants a straight answer. With my 40 years of experience, I have never heard of anything as stupid and amateurish as this. You have been absolutely polite when you say that it is amateur, but I find it to be absolutely bizarre. And unless the officer concerned had suicidal tendencies, no professional officer would even dream of doing such a self-goal as this. Look at the timeline. It takes time to cultivate a source. It takes time to win the confidence of the source. It takes time to do a dry run. It takes time to test and do the background check. It is not that I see an acquaintance and just by way of casual acquaintance, I assign him the most sensitive task. I don't think that this is even possible. It sounds so bizarre. And then to share photographs, an open secret agreed that US is the champion and is iconic as far as electronic surveillance is concerned. But yes, Indians are second to none as far as their professional competence is concerned. And rest assured, all of you must have visited the offices of Secret Service agents and others. There is nothing ever on the table, no signboards, nothing. They wouldn't take calls, they wouldn't give calls. And if they do take a call, the only 3 words they appear that they would say is yes, no, and thank you. No dates, no places, nothing. This is as discreet. And Nikhil Gupta's claiming that he went and made a video on Signal and WhatsApp and other apps and then being monitored by the US. Everybody knows that whatever is happening is there were countries and agencies who would be privy to that communication. So there is no question of somebody discussing something so sensitive on a platform, howsoever secure the vendor may be. But the fact of the matter is that it is totally unconvincing a story, and I feel that I do not have any merit. But yes, I would ask a question. Gurpatwant Singh is a proclaimed terrorist from India. He is a rewarded offender. And he also said, 19th November, do not fly Air India because he wants to bomb it off. I think America has a duty also to nail such people. If somebody like this had said this in India, rest assured he would have been in Tihar jail by now for at least a rap of 10 years. He would not have been there openly challenging a sovereign state and also fomenting discontent in the country, promoting riots, indulging in extortion. But I really am surprised how this, and also one last point, David Coleman Headley, who is an important asset of the DEA and the FBI, was a part of the 9/11 attack. And yet we were not allowed to question and interrogate David Coleman Headley. And you may go, Daud Gilani is his alias, half Pakistani, half American. I really don't know. Why the soft corner for the likes of Pannu and David Coleman Headley? And I could go on and on giving you examples that your assets may be yours. But please take pains to ensure that these valuable assets do not make a mess of other countries. Because there is a time we have a right to self-defense, we have a right to protect ourselves, and like any other nation, we have a right to exist. So.
Very true, sir. Well said, in fact. And let me take this to Rich then. Rich, you see, Mr. Singh mentioned about David Coleman Headley. He remains in US custody. We have not been allowed to question him. And it's just a coincidence, perhaps, but then it speaks something. That like David Coleman Headley, this confidential source is also an asset of the DEA. DEA is the common factor. It's possible that Nikhil Gupta, because he's into drug running and all sorts of criminal activities, was also playing up. And then, of course, the assassin happens to be an undercover FBI agent. Now, I understand FBI is a strong agency, powerful agency. They can go and raid the office, they can raid the residence of the former president of the United States, Donald Trump. In fact, I believe in January, they were at the residence of the present president also, got some files out there. But then, is it a case of the United States, or not United States, but perhaps the deep state, laying a trap to create a situation where the momentum in the India-United States partnership is adversely affected?
Adversely.
Yeah, well, so where I stand personally on terrorism cooperation is probably not too far from where you're at. I think that your terrorists should be recognized as our terrorists and vice versa. I think we should be sharing information. And if there has been withholding of access for interrogation of a suspect with ties to terror acts against India, then that needs to be rectified. That is also a little bit separate, however, from the issue of whether an Indian intelligence asset was involved in directing Nikhil Gupta to try to conduct an assassination on U.S. territory. For even as we should support one another in counterterrorism investigations, so too should we respect the sovereign territory of one another. Now, as regards the agencies, look, DEA, by the nature of its business, works with drug dealers, right? So when they're doing their investigations, I think we need to recognize that it is possible that drug dealers that are in the United States and drug dealers that are in India, that are in the nexus of intelligence work and police work and that some of these are unsavory characters. So it's possible that there was a lie involved and that India has been mischaracterized in terms of its role. That's possible. And that would go to your theory about the sort of the amateurish nature of this. However, I think if there was not solid information with regards to signals intelligence that clearly indicated that this unnamed CC number one, so this someone in the Indian intelligence apparatus was involved, then you wouldn't see the highest level, including the president's and foreign minister level, discussing this. As regards the India-U.S. relationship, look, the nation states are not philanthropies. So I also agree that while this is investigated, it should not be allowed to become a crisis that crowds out strategic cooperation on other shared priorities. This is something that needs to be solved among two friends, and without too much browbeating and without too much histrionics. But we need to be clear that the assassination of American citizens, even bad ones, on American soil is off limits. That cannot be done. And I welcome the Indian investigation to help clarify whether that's what went on.
Well, that's very responsible. And Joseph, you think that as natural allies, though of course till now the conduct on both the sides has been very restrained and measured, you think this is the tone that should be carried forward? US carrying out its own investigation, India carrying out its own inquiry, and then the two come together at the top and whatever level they decide and really sort it out amicably rather than really spill it out like the Canadians have done, really blown it out.
I agree with that, the strategy, because the friendship, the benefits of the partnership between India and US, it is the need of the hour. We need to stick together against the terrorism worldwide. It need to be, transparent, and there should be, sharing of information between the agencies, between the governments at the higher level, may not be discussed in public. But this is where we need to maintain. Again, every partnership go through tough times. We need to stick together, and open communication is the way to go, not to be laundering our dirty clothes in the public. And this might also have some push from the Canadian, because the timing is very perplexing, because the Canadian claim to have intelligence that their Najjar was killed by Indian agent, and sources, because this times just adds up that this could have been the source of that Canadian allegation that Indian government was involved. So if this is all becomes because of this, nothing burger, then we might know where it came from. I just have to make one more point, that we need to make sure that the Kanishka bombing victims are not forgotten. India need to create a memorial for them, because this is the largest Air India explosion happened in UK, and right now I think we're forgetting it. We're forgetting that the Khalistanis have made it happen. They took responsibility for it, and they're walking free. So we need to remember the victims of that tragedy and to support them and create a memorial. Maybe even Indian government should sponsor it.
Yeah, absolutely. The question is, where would the memorial come up, Joseph? Because the flight took off from Canada and was blown up just before it was flying over the United Kingdom. But on that note, I think I have to come to an end of this conversation. Thank you so much, Mr. Vikram Singh, Joseph Chalil, and Rich Audzen, as always. It seems that in this Gurpatwant Singh Pannun saga, it's the American deep state coming face to face with the Indian deep state. And it would be incumbent upon the leaderships of the two countries to make sure that this jousting that is happening between the deep states does not let the momentum between the states, between the nations, natural allies, one world's biggest democracy and one world's largest democracy, strongest democracy, is not jeopardized. On that note, thank you so much, friends, for joining us. Short break, and Arnav Goswami, of course, is back with the debate tomorrow 9 p.m.